So, the thing that is not in this recipe we'll get to in a minute. But optionally, you could also use this all water, which I'm talking about as well. So we're going to follow the recipe as we have it here. 8 ounces of each. The bowl, the pot. The salt goes in as well. What else goes in?
The butter.
The butter goes in, also in the beginning. Okay, so get the butter in. Why is it cubed?
It's better, easier to melt, right?
Yeah, it's going to be faster to melt, that's all. So turn on the heat. Yes? Oh. Turn on the heat. And what am I waiting for?
For it to boil.
Just to come to a boil. And then how long do I let it boil for? Just, yeah, basically, as soon as it comes to a boil, that's it. So you don't want to evaporate the water, or else you'll be changing the ratio between the dry and the wet ingredients. Yes. Room temp butter would be better because then it'll melt more quickly.
It was.
Yeah, okay, it'll go fast. So here we are, heating up our milk, water, pinch of salt, and butter till it comes just to a boil. The next step is add the flour all at once. So the one sort of safety precaution thing is if you were working over a stove with flames, and the flames were high, you probably wouldn't want to, you would take it off the heat for a second. Just because potentially if flour gets into the flames, it'll flare up. Next, so we'll get there. So let's talk about the other things there. So what's, first of all, the mise en place you need to have?
I set the mixer with the paddle.
Okay, so you can actually do it by hand, but yeah, it's much easier to have the mixer with the paddle attachment. Where is that paddle attachment?
I put it in, it was in the bowl
10 years ago.
Where's all my stuff?
So it just makes it easier, but you don't need to do it that way. You can do it by hand. It's definitely something you can do at home without any special tools. Next. So yeah, the other thing, so notice I have a wooden spoon.
A wooden spoon, yes.
Very crucial tool. I have a whisk here, but I don't want to use the whisk. I just brought it here to remind myself that I will show you why you don't want to use it. Because the whisk does not work as well. It's much better to use the wooden spoon. So what are the tools? So obviously a stove for cooking. And then the very crucial things to have are the tools you're going to use immediately after making the pot au choux, which are your piping bag and various assorted tips. Yes. Is that my tip useful? Okay, no problem. What's the next question down there? What is the method? We're going to get there. Finally, at the bottom. How would your results differ if you utilized all water instead of milk and water?
It's a lighter blend.
Watery.
Pot au choux.
So which is lighter?
Just give me a lighter blonde.
What's that? Can't hear you, sorry.
A lighter blonde pot au choux.
A lighter blonde pot au choux if you use which?
The water.
All water. Okay. So you're going to get a lighter color because the milk caramelizes a little bit. What about in terms of the texture? So the shell's actually going to be a little softer if you use milk. If you use milk.
Should it be harder?
It'll be harder, a little bit crispier if you use water. In terms of color, it's going to be lighter in color if you use water. And then in terms of cost, cheaper. A lot cheaper to use water than to use milk. So I actually like the results with water, but this recipe calls for half snow top water, which is not uncommon. And it gets you a little bit richer taste. Okay, but the real richness comes from the huge amount of butter and the egg. Whatever you see is what you see. Look around. Next question down there is what would have to be used on purpose instead of bread flour? Yeah, you might not get quite as good of a rise if you use the all-purpose flour, and then it helps hold the structure. It's not going to be chewier per se, but it's going to hold in the shape a little bit better if you have the bread flour. Better structure. Okay. Anybody get anything else for that one?
Better structure.
Better structure.
Yeah. If you use all-purpose?
No, if you use bread flour.
Oh.
Okay, anything else? So what are some of the final shapes? What do we make with pot au choux? So the oblong is what?
Eclairs.
Eclairs. Okay.
Rings.
Rings for the Paris press, like you were doing over there, Chris. The Paris press, that wheel. What other things?
Domes.
Cream puffs, yeah. So cream puffs or profiteroles, they're sometimes called. There's a whole series of different things that are made with it. In fact, when you get to second semester with Chef Hammer, you're going to learn some savory things where you blend in some potatoes, make some different things based on pot au choux. Yes, sir.
Jalapeno. The region of Mexico is
No, it isn't a region. It has to do with the city, I think.
city.
Yeah.
Well, that's a free last thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I don't remember.
But what is the name of the city? Is it Jalapeno?
No, it has. I looked it up once. I can't remember.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Press.
Okay, so anyway, here we go.
And something
So
with
it just came to a
potatoes.
boil. Pretty sure it's the city. Sure? Anyway, we get the water just coming to a boil. Pour in all of the, there, see the boil? Okay, pour in all the flour. So in relationship between the liquid and the flour, it's a lot of flour. So it's almost instantly going to thicken up. A little bit like a roux, but this has a different name. So notice, see how it's all lumpy right now? It goes instantly from being lumpy into being smooth. If I were using my whisk, all it would do is clump up inside of here, and I'd spend the next 5 minutes trying to go like that, getting it all out of there. That's why I don't use the whisk. I used to use the whisk all the time, and then I got smart. Okay, so mixing. Look what happens. It instantly thickens up. Now all I want to do is make sure I get rid of any lumps of flour. So I'm cooking it. When you cook a dough like this type of a dough is called a panade. P-A-N-A-D-E. Not important that you know it, but that's just what it's called. So it's a cooked dough. So look at what's happening. I'm stirring. They say sometimes it forms a ball, but it's not a ball in the sense of like a round ball. It's just that it comes together as a big clump of dough. So notice on the bottom it's getting a bit of a film. That's the other way I know it's getting cooked. There's a film of the flour from the cooking on the bottom. So about 30 seconds is all you need to make sure you've cooked it a little bit, and then it's ready to go into the mixer. Sometimes you can smell a little bit of a nutty smell from the butter and the flour cooking a little bit, and that's it. So it's good enough. Turn it off. Transfer it to the bowl. So again, if you wanted to do it by hand, you would just transfer it to a mixing bowl, and then the addition of the eggs would happen by hand. It goes on to the KitchenAid panel attachment. So notice what's coming off the machine? Lots of steam, which means water is hot. It's the water evaporating. Okay, so what would happen if I added my eggs, if I had it turned off and I added my eggs on top?
They're gonna cook.
It might cook them a little bit. So that's why we first mix it for about 30 seconds, let some of the heat dissipate, and then we start adding the eggs. Very important. How do we add the eggs, Hazel?
You temper them.
Okay, we don't temper from
One by one.
one or two at a time. So we don't put the whole amount in. So we keep adding them little by little. So tempering would actually be hot into the eggs, right? So it's not quite tempering. So we add 2 eggs at a time, 1, 2, and we let it mix. We wait until those are fully incorporated before we add the next eggs. Here is the thing that's important to know that is not in the book, but it's very important to know. You may not need all of the eggs, you may need more eggs. So it tells you an amount, but based on all kinds of things, how much you cooked it, how big the eggs are, how maybe, there's all these factors that come into play. The real test is you need to check for the consistency. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So it's up to you to decide, does it have the right amount of eggs? Does it need more eggs? So it's up for you to decide. You must check the consistency. That is not in the book.
What happens if it looks
If it doesn't have enough eggs, it won't bake up right. If it has too much eggs, it'll get runny and it won't hold its shape after you pipe it. 2 more eggs, going in.
how do we know if it's hot?
Well, I'm going to show you how to check. And then once you have the right consistency, then you are good to pipe. Good, okay, but it doesn't.
I tried to talk to it said, but I actually talked to the next one.
That's good. Yeah, it doesn't. I guess what
It should just say,
you may. I like it. I would wish it said you may need more or you may need less. It just says stop adding, but that's not very clear. Because it doesn't also include going past. You may need more eggs. Okay, so adding another egg or 2. So when I get down to like the last egg or 2, that's when I start checking for consistency. So this recipe typically, if anything, needs more. But you may find some recipes got like big long fingernails now. Yeah, I can definitely tell it's going to need more. So I'm going to check consistency. So see, very thick. not at all close. Even Chef Hamrick would know it's not close enough. So Melissa, if you can get a couple more eggs here. Just don't crack it, you see the hole. So add that in. Okay, so what else? Anything else we could cover? Nope, just to make sure that they get absorbed well into the dough. Otherwise, it would take longer for it to absorb in.
Those loaves in the oven,
Is that?
there are loaves in the oven and it kind of smells.
Yeah, they're fine.
They're fine?
There was some issue with the chemicals again, I think. I don't know.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna check. Yep, I can tell it's definitely too thick still. So the way it should come off, when you lift up the paddle, it should sort of come off,
Slide off easier.
Should stream down.
and it should actually, it's actually close. It's a
Yeah.
little bit thick though. See how it's like, it's not settling at all? It should settle just slightly in the bowl. It should also be shiny from the liquid.
egg,
It's
yeah.
not quite shiny yet. So we're almost there, but I know I can use maybe one more egg. Okay, let's take it out.
One more? Or no?
Yeah, I think I still want one more egg. Yeah, it's just still a little bit too thick. Okay, one more egg and then we're done.
So it's not based on the master.
So see, we needed a whole extra 2 eggs. Sure it's all well combined. Okay, so when I pick it up, yeah, I think I would still use one more egg, but I'm going to stop now. But it should come off. It should sort of fall in a V shape. Yeah, a V shape. So Melissa, one more egg, please. Yeah, it's not moving. It should move a little bit. Yeah, see it's cutting off. Wouldn't you say one more egg, Chef?
In your pocket,
Yes. Are you?
I would say one more egg. Yeah. I say you're kind of stiff there.
We extra eggs we need.
But if I'm going to blend it with my potatoes,
Then it doesn't matter.
cut it short and be done. That would be fine for me.
I
Something
smell-
smells burned.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
smell
someone should.
Yeah, yeah. Like 1/3, 2/3.
Oh,
and then you pipe them to the part of the bacon.
Okay. Zen, you check the pumpkin, the banana bread. Secure.
Yes, ma'am.
No, that's it. Put it on the plate. Right in.
Pumpkin pie overflows a little bit. Okay, now I can see how it's settling. It looks better.
It's glossy.
And it looks glossier. What do you think over there? Okay, so now look at the difference here. now it's moving a little bit.
Ah,
Still there. Now it's moving there. See, and it still holds the,
the
shape.
V, yeah.
Yeah, the V.
And
Some
it's
people use
shinier. There it goes. That's Yeah.
what we're